What's happening, everybody? It's your coach and trainer, Achidi, wishing you first and foremost, Happy New Year. Welcome to 2022. And as we get started on this brand new year, we can start thinking about, just how can I make myself better or have my life be more fulfilling starting today? Well, I'm gonna be hooking you up with learning how to master your fears. But first, do me a favor, take a quick, hot second, hit like and hit subscribe and help me grow my channel. I'm gonna give you a brief moment to do exactly that. 3, 2, 1. See, that's not so hard, and on to the good stuff. So, even though the calendar says January and Halloween's not till October, we're still talking about fear. Scary stuff, but we're not talking about a zombie apocalypse, being afraid of the dark, or heights, or any of that. We're actually only going to be talking about the up-in-your-head fear. If you want to think about it, fear can be an acronym that stands for false evidence appearing real. And exactly that. Those fears, the ones that are only existing between our ears, are the reasons that we hold ourselves back from having a much better life and really being successful. And they can often be our downfall, leading us to self-sabotage. So, as I get onto the main meat and potatoes about how to master your fears, I'm actually going to share a little bit about myself on what I am afraid of and just what I am doing to work on that. So, time for me to get vulnerable and tell you about some of my fears. Let's go to the next part. Okay, so let's first talk about where do many of our fears, including my own, come from. They weren't just magically infused into you and you were told to be scared of A, B, or C. No. Much of our fears are rooted in our upbringing, and that can be a good, neutral, or negative environment that we were raised in. So I'm going to use myself as an example, and this will kind of show you just how deep these fears can actually run and how devastating they can be, even though we ourselves don't seem like we have anything to be afraid of. So, believe it or not, I was raised in a very privileged environment. Both my parents are successful physicians, having gone through their own series of hardships. My father immigrated from West Africa and put himself through college, medical school, and started a very, very successful career, which he is now retiring from. My mother grew up in the deep South in Florida, also during the civil rights times, and as a black female, she put herself through medical school and other programs to elevate herself to the level that she is today. Now, that sounds like it's great and everything, right? Here's the kicker. I grew up in an environment where achievement, success, and being a leader and recognized was highly valued. In fact, it's kind of how I'm wired and what I've been programmed to really just look for. And that's great until you understand that there's a downside to that. When I'm not actively pursuing something or in the middle of achieving something, getting recognized, essentially validated, I feel very empty and low. In fact, recently, due to the pandemic and the nature of my business as a personal trainer, the last week of the year is often the slowest. And like I said, with the pandemic, that doubles down the slowness. Those are out of my control. But because of how my brain tricks me into being afraid that I'm a failure, I'm not accomplishing anything, I'm losing money, I'm not a good trainer because of the factors I just explained, I now get down and I get afraid that my life is over. But again, I just highlighted the two biggest factors are it's the slowest part of the year in training and there's a pandemic going on. So my fears are only up here because even if we remove those two other factors, I'm still putting myself out there. I do great for my clients. And in fact, it's all just my head thinking that I'm not always actively pursuing something. I'm not always actively achieving. I must be failing. That couldn't be further from the case. But in the moment and for the last week or so, that's been the dominating thoughts in my head, and it made me actually afraid that my life was over. Obviously, that's not the real case, and I'm thankful that I've been given some great tools, and I'm gonna share them with you on how to manage your fears and to knock out that crazy talk, because just like I was telling myself, that's all it is crazy talk. So let's go over this simple 4-step process to managing your fears and getting you out of that self-sabotage funk. So, step number 1 requires you gotta breathe. Breathing is how we reset our nervous system, and by actively making a conscious effort to slow your breath rate down, bring your stress level down, you begin the process of eliminating your fears or managing them in a much better fashion. So when you find that you're getting worked up, you're not breathing deeply and your heart rate is going up, you need to slow inhale through the nose, hold, deep exhale. All of this should be coming from down here and not in your chest. So it helps to put your hands over your belly button and feel your stomach push out, hold, push your stomach muscles back in to breathe out. Do that repeatedly for at least 10 to 15 breaths, taking your time to breathe in, hold, and then breathe out slowly, and that will start the process. So the first step is to just simply breathe. So on to part 2. After you've done your box breathing, it's now take a time to listen to just the crazy words you're saying to yourself. For my case in point, I was saying that I lacked purpose, I'm a terrible trainer, I'm a failure, I'm gonna be broke, and all that crazy catastrophic talk. None of that is the real reality at all. I'm really just feeling an extreme sense of loss just because I'm not actively pursuing something and reaping the benefits of it. That goes back to my upbringing, as I talked about in the earlier part of the video. So the second part comes down to, after you've breathed, listen to the words you're saying. Hopefully you've talked to other people and they can remind you of the crazy words you're saying, and take heed of them, because your crazy words are part of the reason why you're feeling the way you are. So breathing has calmed you down. Now your word choice is changing the way your thoughts go. So that's part 2. So now we're on to part number 3. We've already breathed and brought our nervous system down. We've also recognized the negative words that have been dominating our thought process and causing us to think catastrophically. Now in this third step, we're gonna simply change up the language, and even though there's negative things happening, we're gonna change our language so it affects us in a different way. So I can't help it that it's the end of the year and that clients are taking advantage of the holidays, and a pandemic is really making a lot of people sick and stay home. What I can do is change my mindset about that and not make it something I have to change, and just allow myself to live in the fact that it's the end of the year. This always happens, and a pandemic has made it even more so. I gotta just accept that. That's what the third step is about. That's about changing your language and not making it so woe is me, and making it, okay, this is the reality of the situation. And now when we go on to the fourth step, that's where we're gonna turn it into action. All right, so lastly, we're on to part 4. You've done the breath work, you've identified the negative and catastrophic talk, and you've even started working on changing it to either being neutral or slightly positive. Now comes the time to create a plan of action to put into play when you get worked up into this fear-filled state. So for myself, when I see that it's getting close to the end of the year, I'm gonna do several things differently. First and foremost, starting at the beginning of the year, I'm gonna create a different savings plan so that by the end of the year, I have a nice cushion that I can pull from, so I don't have to feel like, oh man, I'm feeling that financial pinch. I can also remember that I've been doing this for over 15 years, and it's always been the same scenario this time of the year, and that's always gonna be the case. It helps that I reach out to other trainers to see how they are handling the time, and maybe we can go and do something together with all that free time that we have. I have all sorts of options that are better than me being a bad trainer. I have so many better options, and so do you. After you've identified the negative talk and created positive words around it and made the situation more realistic to digest, you should be able to see that you can manage your emotions down better, and even talking out this crazy fictional scenario should start to become more outlandish when you start to prepare for it. If you're so worried about there being a mega tsunami that's gonna engulf you and your family, literally start preparing for it, because you're either gonna have the preparation materials for a tsunami, or as that tsunami preparation is going on, you're gonna be like, this is a lot of work for something that has almost never happened, so I'm probably on the wrong path. So either way, you're gonna be prepared, or you're gonna be hit with a dose of reality that brings you back down. So I trust this video gave you a lot of things to think about when it comes to your fears, their origins, and how to better manage them. Let's take all this info and apply it for today and throughout the rest of the year so we can have less fears and a better life moving forward. Have a great week, everybody.